Hello. Okay, I'm gonna read this story, or part of the story, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think about it. But this story just came out. Sidney Powell's election lawsuit in Georgia gets expedited appeal. A federal a federal appeals court agreed on Wednesday to expedite the appeal in a case brought by lawyer Sidney Powell against election officials in Georgia. A judge on Sunday blocked election officials from wiping or altering Dominion voting system machines in 3 counties, but Powell was seeking statewide order, prompting her to seek an emergency appeal from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. The appeals court on December 2nd granted the emergency appeal, ordering plaintiffs to file their initial brief by midnight and defendants to file their response by midnight on December 4th. Plaintiffs can file a response to the response by midnight on December 6th. The initial brief wasn't listed on the docket as early as Thursday. A December 4th hearing scheduled in front of the lower court judge who made the initial ruling was postponed in light of the appeals court order. Also on Wednesday night, the Democratic Party of Georgia entered an emergency request to grant an intervention so they can participate in the appeal. The party is being represented by Washington firm Perkins Coie, COIE, a longtime Democrat-linked company. Powell is representing about a dozen voters who argue there was a fraudulent scheme to manipulate the vote count to make sure Democratic nominee Joe Biden won Georgia. Powell is seeking to have outside experts examine machines. Georgia election officials are attempting to prevent that from happening. The case, Pearson versus Kemp. Yeah. You can look at it yourself. All right, so that last part, Georgia election. Why would they be stopping? Doesn't make any sense if there wasn't any fraud. Like think about this. This isn't like someone's personal, like phone or something like that. This is a election machines that determine the next president, right? Or help determine the next president. These are votes. These are your votes. Like, why would officials not want to go ahead and let the outside experts examine the machines? Unless they know, and this is the thing, their will to push back against this shows you that they're afraid and that they are probably, involved, or, they're a part of the voter fraud. And they know about the voter fraud, and they know that the machines either could or will show, that there was voter fraud. And then also by that, I mean, now, of course, they're going to be implicated in that. Because if there was no voter fraud, like they all say, then they should be like, all right, yeah, go ahead, do what you're not going to find anything, but go ahead. And honestly, this stuff would have been done already with the election had they not. They're not hiding. If they weren't hiding anything, but they are hiding stuff, and they know this. And then it's just crazy. And the FBI isn't really doing anything. None of them are actually doing anything, and they're barely investigating. That's because a lot of, like, this is what happens. So the Marxists, what they do is they get their people in high places, and there are a lot of communist Marxists, a lot of traitors in the FBI. There's a lot of traitors in the CIA. There's a lot of traitors in all different branches of government, and that's how they do it. And because they had their guy in there, and Obama put them in, and now that Joe Biden's in there, he's putting more of his people, more of them in there, because a lot of them are radical Marxists and communists. And if you don't know why is communist so bad, because it killed more people. All of the communist regimes or places that have tried communism have killed more people than Hitler on their own. Like, think about that. Fascism didn't even touch. Hitler could have only dreamed of the murder that communism brought. And the fact that you don't know this is because most of your schools, there again, the administrations, the people who choose your curriculum are communist Marxists, or they're paid off by communist Marxists. And your some of your teachers are too, and the other ones just teach it because they don't want to lose their tenure, which they're cowards. Because our country's at stake. The young minds are at stake. They're teaching them to throw away their freedoms, to hate their freedoms, to hate their country. Like, yeah, there's some bad stuff that happened in America, but you only teach one side. Like a good example is imagine you're a Christian, or you're someone who has you're a humanist, right? And you come to America, and some of the tribes are cool, but then you see these other tribes doing practices that are just utterly disgusting, and you're appalled, and you're like, man, these people are savages. Like some Native American tribes were savages. Like, and just like today, there's African tribes that still have disgusting and savage practices today. You're like, oh well, it's just because it's a different culture. Like, no, some things are evil, whether it's in the culture, like whether it's part of a culture or not. It's still evil. That isn't being part of a culture does not make it not evil. So, like, there's a tribe that once the little kid. They're like 5 or 6 or something like that. Maybe a little older, maybe a little younger. And one of the thing is that they have this parade, and the little kids run, out in the or parade, or the mom has it, and this older guy, and he dances over, he takes the little kid, and then he rapes the kid, right? And that's like a rite of pat, like in their culture, like that is disgusting. And people say, "Oh, that's just culture." Like, no, that's fucking disgusting. And if I was a foreigner and I came there, and we have we have the morals that we have here in America or someplace else, and I seen that, like, I would be angry. And if I was in a place of power, hell yes, I'm coming back and straighten that out. Like, it just makes sense. I can't just, like, there are some things that need to be corrected. But see, we live in this era where we live in this, oh, well, no one can be offended, and this, my feelings. Like, no, the real world doesn't even care about your feelings. And one of the problems with the power America has is that you're sheltered from the rest of the world and how it really works. The rest of the world is vicious. I mean, unless you live in the hood, then you should know. Like, when you live in places where there isn't that much law, people don't obey, and people are ignorant, like, there's a lot of bad stuff that goes on. And, like, I was thinking about that today because, like, there's so, like, the music and stuff, is pretty bad. And there's some things that, like, sexualize music and stuff like that. And, like, black girls do it too, these hood girls. And then you have these white girls and these girls who want to be, they want to be black. They want the black culture. They wish they were born, and they're playing this music around their kids. And, like, they want to reject the other side of the heritage, whether it's white, they want this black culture, but they don't understand that's what made us poor. And by you teaching your kids that, like, that path, you're actually putting them on the path to self-destruction. Like, don't come this way, go the other way. Like, be proud of, like, if you're white or Asian, be proud of the education, be proud of the success. Like, chase that success for your kids. It really doesn't have anything to do with color, because we use white, and then we say, because of habits that it is different cultures. We used to have an American culture that had different cultures, but there was always this one American culture that we all adhered to. Like, it was like the master culture, right? And we relied on it. That was something that it didn't matter. Like, we could hate each other, right? But as soon as Pearl Harbor, like, it wasn't just white people who were like, yeah, I'm gonna strap this pack on, take this rifle, and I'm gonna run into that trench. You know what I'm saying? Run towards that trench towards a machine gun, or I'm gonna fly planes. Like it wasn't just white people; that was black people, and black people had we had a culture that had us heading upwards. There were some parts that were deteriorating, but at the same time, for the most part, we were actually starting to surpass whites and everybody else. But you know what the difference was is that we lost like our Christian values, and that's to be honest, and the Christian conservative values, because forgiveness is important. It is an important thing to moving on and actually succeeding. And not like you have to forgive to move on. But and notice how the left, how like the Democrats that you vote for all the time, all these woke people, like the Sean Kings of the world, and how they like dredge up stuff, and how they'll cut videos to make it look worse than it is, and then sometimes it's not even like it. They'll cut videos just to put a different narrative that isn't even the narrative. That's because they just want you to hate, and hate keeps you ignorant. And if you don't know that, if you can't tell that by now, because you hate white people, right? I mean, maybe not like actively, but subconsciously you do, because whenever especially like I should say when it comes to hood culture, subconscious, because you blame so much stuff on white people that so much of the wrongs and the hardships that you're going through now on white people, even though they have really nothing to do with a lot of the stuff that's going on now, right? You hate your fellow brother, your fellow sister, because you shooting them, you killing them, right? You cheating on them, setting them up. Girls will be with one dude, and since the other dude's a drug dealer, has more money, yada yada yada, and then he's cool or whatever, they'll set something up and set their man up they have now. Like it's vicious. Whenever hood culture is a snake culture. And people say, well, no, you don't snitch, and you say, yada, yada, yada. Like, even if no one snitched, you're still murdering your brothers. You're still sleeping around on your brothers and sisters. And I use brothers and sisters lightly, not like, yeah, but you know what I'm saying. And then you hold on to you try to hijack other people's cultures, and you hold on to this thing like, well, when we was in Africa, we was kings. We was kings. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not true. It's not true. Some of y'all your ancestors were slaves before they ever left Africa. Maybe maybe generations of slaves before you left Africa. You never know. You have an unrealistic view of the world. And were there African kings that became slaves in here? Yeah, because they failed, and they were like, that's how, like, they were conquered and then sold. That's the reality of the world. Like, there are sometimes when you either win or you're done. But they still won. Like, their ancestors won. It's like they had their freedom taken from them, and then eventually they gained their freedom, and but they were still denied the freedoms that they now had access to, right? And then they fought to get equal footing with whites. And now you have that equal footing. But everyone tells you don't. Like, it's mind control. They say, oh, you don't have these freedoms. Oh, you can't do this. And then you don't do it. And then you don't even try to do it. Or you try and do it, fail once, and you stop. But what every successful person knows is that you fail a lot sometimes before you succeed. Sometimes you get lucky and you get it the first try. But that's rare. I mean, the Democrats are not your friends. They're your enemies. The white liberals are not your friends. They're your enemies. The white girl that loves you, just not even loves you. She doesn't even really love you. The white girl that likes you just because you're black. Because really, she would have dated almost any black dude. She don't care if they're thugs, criminals, whatever. She just wants to have a black dude. And I'm not saying that's all white girls. I'm saying there are a lot of these white girls that are just like that. and they know you murdered someone, they be like, free my man. Because they got that same ignorant, whatever that is. You know what I'm saying? That a lot of black women have. I remember I dated a black girl, and she wanted me to, like, she got mad because I wouldn't take her to Walmart to shoplift. I wouldn't pull up, wait in the car for her to go in, and then run out with the clothes. I said, no. Like, that's stupid. I'm not. And me personally, I hate thieves. I hate robbers. Like, those are some of the most disgraceful people in the world. And if I could, I would enact a law where if you stole something substantial, like you lose a hand or a finger or something like that. But it had to be something substantial. I'm not talking about candy bars or something like that. I'm talking about if you break into someone's house and you rob them and you get caught, like, that's a finger. Or yeah, if it's an armed robbery, that could be a hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, and someone say like, "Oh, you got to be careful with that because someone might use that as an initiation." Like, well, there'll be some handless motherfuckers. Like, you can only get initiated once. Once you get initiated twice, especially depending on what it is, you might not have nothing. Like, yeah, your gang name gonna be Nubs. Oh, and you're gonna have to tie it back, to your nubs with a bandana, and that's the truth. I'm just kidding, but that was a true story. But it had nothing to do with being rowdy. He just had a nub and he tied it back with a bandana and he acted hard. But life is silly. But you see what I'm saying? Like, these people are hiding something. That's why they're going to court. They're hiding something. If there's no fraud, they shouldn't even be fighting it. All right. Sure.